Alrighty, we're here for the semifinals of Grand Prix Mirage Expo. We're up against Zangy on White Blue Ninjas. This is going to be a tough matchup, but we are on the play. This is the only person in the top four that we are higher seed than. So we do get to kick this game off on the play here. Ignited Soul into Kieran of Boons. Double Igneous Visions to loot to the Ignited Soul. I think I'm going to keep 7. Not the most breakneck hand by any means, but Kieran negates a lot of creatures in this deck. They have a lot of 1-power creatures. So Kieran is going to meaningfully disrupt their ability to block. I'm going to lead on the mountain here. Ignited Soul and pass. Last time we were in Top Cut, Zangy was the one who knocked us out back in January. Holding up Temple of Origins, to me, can only mean one thing, and it is that our opponent is holding up a Sleeper Strix here. So we probably are not going to get in with this Ignited Soul here. We will draw an Ignited Soul. We're going to move right to start a combat. Yup, Sleeper Strix comes down. Probably should let them specify targets. But yeah, Ignited Soul not allowed to attack. We're going to shock in Urban Jungle and get a Kieran of Boons into play through any potential counter spells, because they do absolutely have counter spells. So they're on 3 copies of Omen of Deception and 4 copies of Past Judgment. Past Judgment is going to be brutal in this matchup. It is often just going to be 1 mana counter target spell. Opponent goes for Contest Coordinator here. That's actually really good for us. We can use Kieran of Boons, make the Coordinator unable to block. They reveal a Sealing Strike, so that's probably gunning for the Kieran of Boons here. But honestly, this is fine. Don't love not being able to get in with the Ignited Soul turn 1, but I do love being able to get in for 3 here, unless they choose to soak up 2 damage and sacrifice their Sleeper Strix, which I can't imagine they would want to do. We will untap. We will draw another Urban Jungle. Not great. I think we're just going to go right on to attackers. Prevent the Contest Coordinator from blocking. So opponent just takes 3. We are going to pitch in Igneous Visions to draw a card, and we are flooding. We've seen 1 non-land card so far outside of our opening hand, and that is, I believe, the second Ignited Soul was a draw in a previous turn. I'm going to actually fire off the Igneous Visions in the graveyard here. No, with so much mana, I think I really don't want to risk that the Igneous Visions hits a 3-drop and we just lose it. So what I'm going to do here is Primal Fissure, Ignited Soul, and then we're just going to pass. And I'm going to crack Primal Fissure for a second mountain here. One of the things that I've been thinking about with this deck, and I'll get into it more in the final thoughts, I honestly wonder if it would benefit this deck to have even fewer forests than it already has. Because I believe we're on 4 forests. Yeah, 4 forests and 6 mountains. And I honestly think that should skew even harder towards one direction over the other. Opponent says, I don't think you have any instance in the main deck. They say, oh, you do. Yeah, we have Shiori in the main. And Shiori is not something we would ever play in response to a Sealing Strike here, but it is something we have available to us. Opponent just hangs back. We're going to crack the Primal Fissure here, go find a second mountain. We will untap and draw a Frolicking Tatsuko is interesting. Okay, I think what's going to happen here is I'm going to flash back Igneous Visions. We find a Calamity Cat. That's huge, actually. All right, that is really huge. So we can put counters on the Tatsuko here. We can put counters on one of the Ignited Souls. We're going to take 2. We're going to play the Calamity Cat. We're going to play the Tatsuko. And this is just a question of what do we buff up here. If we buff up the Tatsuko, we get in for 5, but that does make us more vulnerable to Dragon's Repose, picking it up, and completely resetting our progress on that regard, or makes us very vulnerable to Charming Siren's Blessing to just lock down the Frolicking Tatsuko, which, Calamity Cat does get around the no untapping. I think I want to buff Ignited Soul here. And we're going to pitch Igneous Visions. It could have been worthwhile to pitch the Urban Jungle here, but if we get in, I'm pitching both cards anyways. Maybe I should have pitched the Urban Jungle just with the knowledge that if they block, I'd rather hold on to this for the play next turn from hand, but as it stands, we're going to get in for 3. If they let us deal damage, they're just going to take it. I was going to say if they let us deal damage to one of their creatures, I think we kill the Sleeper Strix. I'm fine with the Contest Coordinator. We draw a Forest. Not great. But we do have a good amount of stats on board. We've got 6, 7, 8, 2 more out of the Calamity Cat, so not necessarily 8, but 9 total potential damage swinging in next turn. Opponent is definitely on the card advantage lead here. Frolicking Tatsuko probably getting hit with the Sealing Strike here. Honestly, I don't even know if I agree with that. I think it might be the Calamity Cat worth hitting here, but sure thing, they Sealing Strike a Frolicking Tatsuko. And they're just going to ship back over to us. We untap. We draw a Fabricated Anomaly is huge here. We're going to run out that Anomaly. Make the puzzle box. Loot away the forest. For a foreign encounter. So foreign encounter is very good if we just hold on to it, but that does deny us a Calamity Cat activation. I think what I'm in for here is Calamity Cat on Fabricated Anomaly, pitch the foreign encounter, and then swing with both Ignited Souls and the Anomaly, put a counter on both Ignited Souls. So we'll have just Igneous Visions in the graveyard at the end of this. So, goodbye foreign encounter. Hello hasty Anomaly. I'm going to slide things over here. So they can double block here. I'm fine with this. We kill the Sleeper Strix here and deal 7, take them to 7. And this does put a card in our graveyard for Fabricated Anomaly on future turns. And we just pass. So we got Igneous Visions in case we do not rip something worth playing. They play a tapped land, a Lucent Basin, and they're just going to ship on back. Hmm. We untap. We draw a Temple of Origins. I'm just going to immediately say goodbye to that. Pick up a Shiori the Trickster. Interesting choice to make here. If we Igneous Visions here, that does not allow us to put a counter on Fabricated Anomaly. I want to take a moment and just double check. Flash creatures, where are they at? Sleeper Strix can flash in. That can complicate things, but they've only got 2, and then 2 Convols, which they don't have the mana for right now. Otherwise, they could also have a Dragon's Repose, but they'd have to pay 2 mana for it because they do not have a flyer. If we had chosen not to swing the Ignited Soul last turn, we would have the option to Calamity Cat away Shiori to put a counter on that Ignited Soul, make it a 3/3. Or make it a 2/2 this turn, rather. We'd have another card in our graveyard. So we'd be able to make it a 3/3 on attacks here. I don't know if that's worth letting them keep the Sleeper Strix. I think I'm interested in casting Igneous Visions here. Opponent says K. We flip another Calamity Cat. I think we're gonna go for it. I'm just gonna move to combat. They do have the Sleeper Strix here. So they tap down our Ignited Soul. I'm just going to attempt to cast Shiori. Give them the K on that. Shiori does get countered. Yeah, I think I'm just going to go in here and turn both of the Calamity Cats sideways. If they double block, that is fine by me. We're just going to eat 2 cards, doesn't matter which. We have Lethal coming in. They are going to double block. So we take them to 2. We do lose a Calamity Cat this way, but I'm feeling confident. Spirit Realm Phoenix is lethal for the rest of this game. Convol is a complication, for sure. Like, this card actually doesn't block Phoenix. Opponent just concedes. Okay. We're up a game. This is where we want to be. We have some considerations to make. Burn, I think, is just very safe in this matchup. They have a lot of things for us to justify targeting. Bleeding out often is going to get to push some damage to their face. Terminal Impact is going to be able to slip through any counter spells, which is nice to give us some more board control. Opponent talking about potentially just holding up Omen rather than running out the Sealing Strike. Yeah, it could have been an interesting merit. The reality, though, is that I think Kieran of Boons is just so good in this matchup in particular because of how small their creatures are. Um, Masksmith and Hungry Blob are things I'm thinking about as well. So my merit for looking at Masksmith, Hungry Blob is let's talk about what they have to bring in against us. Omen of Deception, not super worth blowing up. Sealing Strike, potentially worth blowing up. The real merit behind Hungry Blob in particular is Sleeper Strix, as well as the blessings off of Charming Siren. In their sideboard, they've got 4 Soul Guide Lantern, which I could potentially see them bringing this in. I don't know if it's a good plan against us, but they could bring it in. Deflecting Kitsune, I do not think is good against us. Plasma Strike is the big one. Thassa's Caress, probably not coming in. Pest Problem, probably not coming in. So it's Plasma Strike is the big component here that I have to be wary of. I could totally see them boarding out Convol in this matchup just because we don't give them time to get to 5 mana in most cases. So I think if they're bringing in Plasma Strike, we need to be wary of swinging in, of having creatures be tapped at or below 3 toughness. So we do have to be a lot more conscientious about how we use Calamity Cat in this matchup, especially post board because of because of Plasma Strike. So if we get like a turn 1 Calamity Cat swing in, our opponent can just untap, remove Calamity Cat, or can even, since they're on the play, they can just remove Calamity Cat in response. So you have to be mindful of those play patterns. I think Igneous Visions proved pretty relevant there. I'm going to board out 2 copies of that, though. I may just take out the foreign encounters. So my thinking on foreign encounter is their counter magic is going to punish our higher cost spells. So we kind of want to go down on our curve a little bit. And so that then brings the question of either foreign encounter, Fabricated Anomaly, or Spirit Realm Phoenix. And then if I'm cutting a 3-drop, I'm cutting the one that does the least in a vacuum. Like, this can be very powerful. It can get our Spirit Realm. See, I needed to lock down a concise plan here. So Menelaya does not do as much in this matchup because they don't really have destroy-based removal besides Plasma Strike, which is damage. Granted, we did lose a couple creatures to double blocking there, but I don't think that necessarily matters a ton. Maybe we go down 2 Menelaya and go down all 4 Igneous Visions. Yeah, I think I want to free up some like graveyard tension and create a scenario where we are more comfortable exiling cards from our graveyard. So we'll take out the Igneous Visions to free up some tension there. And then going up the burn spells as we have been for just about every match through this GP. Assuming our opponent is going to be on the play. They confirm that. Alrighty, we have a 2-lander here with 2 burn spells, Tatsuko, Ignited Soul, Foreign Encounter. I kind of like this. We go turn 1 Ignited Soul, turn 2 Tatsuko. I think if they play stuff turn 2, we go Tatsuko. If they don't, we hold up Bleeding Out. Opponent's thinking. So, what am I most worried about right now? I'm already feeling glad that I chose not to cut Foreign Encounter. I will say that much. Opponent's mulliganing to 6. We will keep 7. They keep 6. Let's see how this goes. First hand was lands and spells, but like First creature threat was a turn 3/2/2. Little do they know, we do not have a breakneck hand right now. We're not going to be blitzing out the gates. Temple of Origins for their land here. Probably holding up a Plasma Strike or their other 1-drop that has flash. That is an instant, which is, yeah, it's the bird. Sleeper Strix. I almost instinctively typed white-blue just because I saw them type white-blue. It is good to stop and think about what you're typing for your colors for Temple. Because, fun fact, Temple on white-blue for me, I lose immediately. I also instinctively went to tap my Ignited Soul there, and it only registered after they declared targets because of a bit of lag. So I saved face in the match, but in reality, it was a little sloppy on my part. They're going to go Contest Coordinator here. All right, we could go Bleeding Out instead of holding up Bleeding Out. We could just go for Bleeding Out here. They're going to get a Sealing Strike, so they did keep those in. We draw a Terminal Impact. There's a little bit of lag here. I'm in on Bleeding Out the Sleeper Strix here, I think. We could just go for the Tatsuko as well. Because, like, we know they have the Sealing Strike. We know they probably go for the Sealing Strike here. If we play the Tatsuko, otherwise they just get to hold the Sealing Strike for whatever we develop later. We're going to shock for sure. I think the question is, if we get in with the Ignited Soul because we Bleeding Out the Sleeper Strix, what are we discarding? I think that is the puzzler here, right? I think we actually just develop Kieran of Boons. So the reason to go for Tatsuko is that tees up an untapped land, letting us cast for an encounter next turn. And then we get 2 counters off of the encounter. I think I am going to go Tatsuko, because I think I mind losing the Kieran of Boons to the removal spell more than I mind losing the Tatsuko, and we'll just pass here. They're going to get in for 1. No ninjutsu here. Veiled Branch Stalker as the follow-up. We could do 1 damage to this with Terminal Impact and get in for 4. Let's see what we draw. We pick up the 3rd land. So I feel like this is Omen of Deception, right? At the very least, they're representing Omen of Deception here. My concern is that they could also be holding up Sleeper Strix, and if we go for Terminal Impact, kill Veiled Branch Stalker, swing in for 4, a Sleeper Strix here lets them double block Ignited Soul, and that kind of sucks. Alternatively, they just flash in the Sleeper Strix before we attack, and then we just know we don't attack. This is mostly a question of, like, do we play out the Urban Jungle? So one of the things I'm also thinking about here is, what if we play the Kieran of Boons and accept that this is going to get killed by, or going to get stopped by an Omen of Deception here. Kieran of Boons. Opponent is thinking. They're going to crack Primal Fissure here. Plasma Strike does complicate this as well, of course. But not if they just Omen of Deception here. Oh, interesting. They let it through. Let's kill the Branch Stalker. So the funny thing here is I think my opponent was anticipating a Calamity Cap follow-up to the Kieran here. Unfortunately, I think there are just too many things my opponent could do at instant speed here to punish an attack. So what can they do at instant speed to punish an attack? They can play one of their other 2 Sleeper Strixes. They can play one of their Plasma Strikes. They could block the Tatsuko and just Dragon's Repose their creature, potentially drawing them, or not potentially drawing, because they don't get to do any draws, but they could just Dragon's Repose in response to blockers before damage. They don't have a whole lot actually other than that. So 5 cards in their deck, 3 in hand, 50 in the deck. What do we gain by making this attack? Putting them to 16 is very good, obviously. Part of me is like, I have to imagine a hand they would be happy to keep includes Plasma Strike. They did already play the Sleeper Strix, but if they have a second one... Let's go to start combat. If they have the Sleeper Strix, they play it here. I think if they have the Sleeper Strix, I'm fine letting them eat the Ignited Soul. I think I'm cool with this decision. They did have the Plasma Strike that's going to come down on the Tatsuko. That was going to happen sooner or later anyways, so I'm not too upset about this. Opponent does take 1, so we have an Ignited Soul trigger to think through here. I think we're going to use this to cycle for an encounter for free. Pick up a 3rd burn spell. So we're going to have some board control on lock here. And that is 1 Plasma Strike fought through. Popping out our graveyard here. They could Sealing Strike here, take out the Kieran of Boons. Looks like that is what they are going to do. So if we can find something worth slipping under the counter magic here, that is going to be the goal. We untap, we draw, we pick up a mountain. Not ideal here, but I'm going to Bleeding Out the Sleeper Strix, get in for 1, loot away the mountain, I think. Actually, is there merit to just playing Mountain, 2nd Bleeding Out, and then holding up Terminal Impact and not discarding? That's tough. So we know at the very least one of the 6 cards we would have, or not even one of the 6, because this is what we would have drawn in the turn that we go to play Foreign Encounter. Pitching the Foreign Encounter, kind of frustrating in this reality of our opponent going and tapping out for Sealing Strike. We're going to go to combat. We're going to swing 1. I'm not going to discard. I'm just going to play this land and pass. We're going to hold up Bleeding Out because they have 2 cards in hand. Thinking before blockers. If they have a ninja, I want to try and force interaction now. So this would be a merit to just removing this, right? That would be the reason to Bleeding Out at sorcery speed. I think... they get first priority on damage. They are going to ninjutsu in Twilight Agent. Before damage, you're going to Bleeding Out. Attempt to Bleeding Out the Twilight Agent. So if their other card in hand is Counter Magic, we eat the Counter Magic. In this scenario, it looks like we are just going to see them recast the Contest Coordinator. So a little unfortunate here. That is definitely a punish on my opponent's behalf for us choosing to let them swing in with the Contest Coordinator. That was just a misplay. They get a second Sealing Strike. Oof. Yeah, we should have just killed this at sorcery speed. We'll untap. We will draw a Primal Fisher. I am absolutely looting this away. Goodbye, Primal Fisher. We draw Calamity Cat. I think we genuinely just hold on to Calamity Cat. Question now is, do we Terminal Impact the Contest Coordinator? Yeah, definitely feeling the punish here a little bit. Was a misplay to hold up the Bleeding Out rather than just doing it at sorcery speed. But we have the board right now. Unfortunately, we know they have a Sealing Strike in hand. Fortunately, anything they could develop here... are they just going to go for the Sealing Strike? Interesting. Taps 3, untaps 3. We untap. We draw a Bleeding Out. We're just going to loot the Calamity Cat, I think. So if they have Pass Judgment, they can counter this. They do have Pass Judgment, X is 3. So Sealing Strike and 1 unknown. Let's pop out the graveyard, get a good count of what they do and don't have access to. They're paying 2 for a Daring Shinobi. Let's attempt to Bleeding Out the Shinobi. So that is our last Bleeding Out. That is our 5th burn spell. They have Dragon's Repose for the Daring Shinobi. So now their hand is all known quantities. They have a Daring Shinobi. They have a Sealing Strike. If we're going to pick back into this game, now is the time. We draw Temple of Origins. Really not what we need to see here. Let's say goodbye to the temple. Oh, no. Not the time. We're going to pass here. Represent Shiori, I think. But that is a rough draw for us. Opponent, once again, thinking about if they want to go for Sealing Strike. They're going to run out the Shinobi. Fabricated Anomaly is huge here. So thinking about options they could have, we want to run out the mountain here because they probably have, if they have Past Judgment, holding the mountain is fine because they can only counter unless we pay 1. If they have Omen of Deception, we need to play the mountain. So I think we're just going to make sure that none of their counter spells clear this Fabricated Anomaly. We're going to get it into play. They say K, we make a puzzle box, we go to start of combat. Do they have a Sleeper Strix to deny us the attacks? They do not. So we are going to swing, eat a Temple of Origins. Oh no, what is coming down for 2 mana here? Oh, were they thinking about cycling Sealing Strike? Interesting. Oh, they're going to Dragon's Repose the Puzzle Box token. That's very smart. But now they've just got Sealing Strike, and whatever they drew here, that's going to be Sealing Strike on the Anomaly. That is the second Sealing Strike. They can get in with the Shinobi and loot away whatever they have. We take 2. So they draw, they discard a Primal Fisher, and they pass. We are ahead on the clock right now. We've got them to 11, we're at 13, and our creature has Menace. We draw another Fabricated Anomaly. That is a big pickup here. We make the Puzzle Box token. Opponent says rude. We are going to swing 3. Just going to eat the terminal impacts, I guess. Does not particularly matter. They take 3. All right. 1 unknown card. They're drawing a second. Oh, they have the tapped land. I think the world where they develop Temple of Origins here is a world where they did not cut Convol in the sideboard. So if we cannot kill them here, we need to be mindful of Convol moving forward. We untap. We draw. Frolicking Tatsuko is huge. Okay. And Past Judgment is X's 3, which we can hold 3 mana up for. I don't think we use Puzzle Box here. I think we just cast Tatsuko. Because this is going to force a block on Fabricated Anomaly here. Oh, wow. The top decks have been very kind. When it says K. Move to start a combat. What do they have? Any responses to start a combat? Opponent says K again. Clarifying both triggers on the stack in case they want a Plasma Strike. Opponent says it's game. They've got Past Judgment, which is not going to do it. Plasma Strike on top just a little too late. Holy cow. We got there in 2. And we're in the finals. We've got a tough final match ahead of us. Opponent says drew wrong half of the deck each time. Wow. This is a matchup I was very afraid of. Both because I think it's decently favored against us if we stumble. And we were definitely stumbling game 2 here. But but it's also, I think, favored against us in the basis of Zangi is experienced with ninjas in general. The sister format, Magic Set Editor Modern, MSEM, has a ninjas archetype that Zangi has piloted to routine success, from my understanding. So, yeah. Wow. We made it. We made it to finals. I'm a little sad here. I don't have art for Calamity Cat, but I want to promo Calamity Cat. Unfortunately, it's not going to be Calamity Cat if we win this. So we'll see how things shake out. We'll see how finals goes. We're up against a nightmare matchup here. We're up against Rib Collector combo, which I am gonna need some time to figure out the sideboard plan for. uh, But yeah, we got some luck there on our final draws. Fabricated Anomaly, Frolicking Tatsuko was very good. And choosing not to loot anything, keeping that mountain felt very, very good. Obviously I was concerned that, maybe we just want to loot it and go for something more, rather than looting any of our burn spells, but just choosing not to loot ended up really mattering there because obviously they had the second Pass Judgment in hand as the only card in their hand, and Pass Judgment X's 3 would have countered Tatsuko without the fifth land. So we got some big games and big advantages there through some of the choices that we made, even if I think there could have been one or two choices we made a little bit better. Not bleeding out that contest coordinator at sorcery speed is probably something I'm going to be thinking about in my nightmares. But we made it to finals. One match remains. It's going to be a doozy, folks. I'll see you all there. And in the meantime, I'll see you all in the Revolution chat. Take care and wish me luck.